everyone in the internet world. I thought I would make this video to talk a little bit about some bizarre astral travel type experiences that I've been having. Most notably the one that just happened to me, not last night but the night before, in which I met someone who was self-described as my spirit guide. I wrote about it so that I wouldn't forget any details, be sort of reading it from my computer and then elaborating on some points along the way. So I guess to start as like a brief, I don't know, precursor, I've had a lot of like what you could call out-of-body experiences, astral travel type experiences in the past, where entities appear and they are seeming to summon you out of summon your spiritual body out of your sleeping body. And the feeling that usually accompanies that with me is like this really full body, like tingling, whooshing feeling, combined with this really loud, like whooshing, ringing sound. And sometimes I can visually see my spirit body rising out of my physical sleeping body, and other times they just sort of take me on this journey somewhere else without me even having to like go through all the work of getting out of my body. Sometimes on certain nights I am more accepting of it, since it seems like more of an adventure than a chore. Some nights I don't really enjoy to experience that because I would just rather knock myself out and go to sleep, because it does take a lot of energy out of me personally. I don't know how it is for anybody else, but I've had a number of experiences like this in the past, but this one was by far the most unusual one. So yeah, I thought I would tell you about it, so here it goes. It began that after waking up in the middle of the night to fetch several glasses of water, I started to feel a familiar full-body tingling, zapping feeling, accompanied by the continual ringing sound that seems to consume my body when these types of things happen. That being the out-of-body experience is going to happen. At first, the entity there was manifesting as Jeremy, my husband, and I felt menaced by the fact that my body was paralyzed and that this entity was trying to remove me from my body. It can be really alarming when there's a figure by your bedside or even at the foot of your bed, shadowy in quality but mostly appearing to be vague and gray, as if manifesting from a cloud of white smoke. Sometimes it's really terrifying, sometimes it's really beautiful, so it varies. These entities have appeared to me often. Mostly they're tall and sometimes do indeed appear menacing. I got frightened by this single entity this time and forced myself to wake up. I turned on the light, I brought in our little Buddhist prayer bell, and I thought, who knows, maybe this will stop. It was like I was regarding this entity as evil, in part like I thought that like it was a regular dream or a nightmare that I could just wake up, turn on the light, reset, and have a normal night's sleep afterwards. But when you have entities that are insisting you get out of your body in the night, they really won't back down. They try and try, even if you seem to be scared. And I'm realizing that they're kind of coaxing you out, probably to teach you some valuable lesson. It's not necessarily menacing, so I'll probably get into more of that. So I finally came to find out that I have nothing to be afraid of with these entities. They're only regarded as evil or frightening to me because they're asking or demanding me to do something I don't want to do. Those out-of-body experiences and journeys are often really exhausting, and when all you want to do is have a relaxing sleep, they have a different agenda. It feels a little bit sinister. But what's really going on is that they have an agenda for you, something you need to learn, somewhere you need to go, something you need to see, some spiritual being you need to meet, some cosmic lesson. That's what I figured out. But I didn't know this at the time. I was just still freaked out. When I lay my head back on the pillow after what I thought was a pretty effective ritual to dispel the spirits in the room, I immediately began to hear some voices again, speaking to me, really just right close in my ear and my head. And I've had these many times. They will manifest as voices of my mother and father, my husband, kindly strangers. They tend to take on the environment that I'm in when I'm sleeping. So if I'm staying with family members, the voices will come as family members. You know, when I'm here at home in the city, a crowd of people seems to emerge, and maybe it's like a fun bar scene or something like that. You hear people laughing and hear snippets of conversation, and every once in a while one or two little voices that are a little bit clearer in your inner ear or something will kind of chime in and go, hey, yeah, okay, and it's as if they're trying to calm you and coax you and make you feel comfortable for whatever journey you're about to go on. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Anyway, so at this point, these voices were really kind, and they were female voices. They were saying they were taking me on a journey, and I was kind of mentally talking back and going, you know what, I'm really tired, guys. I really would rather just sleep and dream regular. And they said, you know, you really need it, it's for your own good. And just like that, the whoosh and the tingle began again, and this cloudy, smoke-like entity raised my spirit body out of my sleeping body. And at first, I was kind of onto the ceiling. Now usually, or sometimes when this happens, I will get raised partially out of my body, but my spirit head will be pinned to like my physical head. It's almost as if mentally I'm not willing to let myself go on this journey, but this time I did like get raised all the way to the ceiling, and that was really weird. I was pretty frightened at this point, but I realized I've probably done this 50 plus times before, and they're not trying to hurt me, it just feels weird, and that feeling of weirdness can cause you to like be apprehensive. They beckoned for me to squeeze through the screen and out my window, my bedroom window. The first time I tried unsuccessfully, and then it became clear to me that my mind was limiting me, thinking that my spirit body couldn't pass through a solid object. So the entities put me back in my body and tried the whole process again. I tried to go through the window and couldn't go through the window. They put me back in my body, zinged me out of my body, and then, you know, probably about like the third time that this happened, I made a successful exit out of the window. So I made it out the window, and I began to soar into the neighborhood outside of my bedroom window. Now we have this huge like junction box thing of all these power lines that branch out like right beneath our bedroom window, and then I became frightened that my spirit body would get entangled with the power lines and I have to dodge the power lines, and my entity was like, nope, we're trying it again. So they put me back in my body again and raised me out of my body again, repeated this process until I was able to soar into the neighborhood that I live in on my street without fear of running into physical objects, realizing that like, okay, my spirit body is pretty much like able to just go for it. All this understanding and revelation about this was pretty much communicated to me and through them and together, back and forth without words, but almost like telepathically. So finally I glided down to the sidewalk at the intersection of my streets, into what I imagine to be like an alternate universe or dimension that exists on my same sidewalk intersection in the late evenings. Either that, or I was in a dimension composed only of other spirit beings and spirit constructs. At this intersection, the buildings looked almost identical, as they really do, but there were all these other beings milling around. There were street lamps, trees, maybe like some music playing. It looked like a village square or some kind of a meeting point. Yeah, the buildings all looked exactly the same, but there was clearly something else going on. It was some other weird extra dimension, and I've seen this before, but again, this time it was a little bit different. So when I was there on the street walking about, I heard a voice really close again to my head telling me, follow me. and I couldn't find him, but I knew he was nearby. It wasn't a yell like yelling across a crowd, but it was a voice that was really close in my ear right next to me, but I knew that he was not right next to me in the physical sense. So I began to search for him. I looked at all the faces and the people moving about, and I saw who I believed to be the owner of that voice. I walked up to him and said, "Is this you?" And he said, "Yes, you did it. Now let's try again." Just like that, I was back in my own body. And then again with the tingling, the whooshing feeling, being lifted out of my body and out the window and gliding down to the street corner. Well, this time I landed somewhere slightly different, but in the same neighborhood. And the voice again said, "Can you find me?" I looked for him, but I had a little harder time finding him. I approached what I thought looked like him, but the person said, "No, it's not me." I was puzzled, and I looked across the crowd, and then I saw him. And I ran over to him and said, "There you are." He said, "See? You have to pay close attention. Remember me and you'll find me." He smiled and kind of laughed a bit. He's humorous about this. Then he said, "Okay, remember me and you'll find me. Let's try again." Then, just like that, I was back in my body, being pulled out of my body, out the window, over a landscape that was suddenly a lot less familiar. And then there was a kind of a flash, and suddenly I found myself in a really busy Asian marketplace. It was a covered bazaar, bustling with people and food vendors and fish cooking and ducks hanging, and there were so many sights and smells and people, and I was so excited and overwhelmed, but then the voice again said, "Can you find me now?" I became really overwhelmed, and I laughed. And I looked around at this sight. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life, and for a moment I felt uniquely blessed. And I got hungry because of the smells of the delicious food. And so I started wandering around, and I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to find this voice or this entity. So I saw someone who looked like they might speak English, and I said, "This might sound weird, but where are we? Are we in China? Are we in Japan?" And he goes, "How do you not know where you are?" And I got embarrassed, and I went, "Well, sometimes I just gap out about these things. But where are we?" And he's like, "Oh, we're in Phnom Penh in Cambodia." I nodded and laughed, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. So I nodded and I laughed, and I went on my way searching for this voice. And I wandered through these market stalls and these busy thoroughfares, and then I found him by looking at him and I guess just sensing the energy. And at this point he looks like a man in his late 50s, wearing sports sunglasses and a black t-shirt with a little Nike swoosh on it. And previously when I'd run into him, he looked like a completely different man. I found him and he said, "Yes, it's me." And I said, "Are you some kind of a guide?" I asked him kind of inquisitively, and he said, "Yeah, I'm your spirit guide. I'm your spirit guide." He smiled, and I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "It's Thea." In my mind, I knew to mean that it was spelled Thea. Now, when I woke up and I googled it, it turns out that this is a Greek name that means goddess or godlike, which that's pretty unusual. I never even heard of this word in my entire life, and now it's this name. I really went, okay, I'm committing this to memory. I cannot forget this name. So he's just revealed to me that he's my spirit guide, and I find this really, really poignant and unusual. We sat down at a little table in the bazaar next to some people eating some noodles and some fish, and he briefly explained to me, we sat across from each other at this table, he just says that I need to know how to find him when he next calls for me. I need to remember his name and remember his energy. And I said, okay. And then he said, all right, let's try again. Bam, just like that, I was in this little bustling Italian plaza at night. And there were all these people milling around, really happy. There was music playing, people were dancing, there were street lights and strings of light. There were marble statues and fountains, all these nighttime revelers. It was marvelous and it was beautiful. I mean, I'd been to Italy recently, but I'd never seen anything quite this vibrant. It still seemed like it was a version of a real place in the waking world, but yet it was this spirit dimension, and that I'm navigating these different spirit dimensions in these different places, and each one gets more chaotic. Each situation gets more bustling and more busy than the next. And again, I hear this familiar voice, "Can you find me now?" And I was overwhelmed by how romantic it was and how bustling it was and how gorgeous it was, that for a second I just really wanted to explore. But then I remember, okay, this entity wants me to find him. He wants me to find him. So I was like, this is getting really funny. Because I've now gone in and out of my body like, 5 or 6 times already, and I keep having to find this entity. It's like he's putting me through this test or this trial. So I remember just looking at all these faces, some of which were actually faces that I'd seen at the other places I'd visited that night. The Cambodian market, the street corner, the other place. Some faces I looked into and could tell they were actually a little bit sinister, or at the very least they were disturbed souls, but the vast majority of the faces were friendly and happy and typical. And I tried to find him, but I had a hard time. Set my glance on this, like a young Spanish man, thinking that it was him, but I thought it doesn't look like him from before, so it can't be him. So instead I looked for the face that looked like his. I found one after a bit of looking, and I said, "I found you." And then he said, "No, you were right before." And then the young Spanish man tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around and this was him. I asked why he did that, and he said he disguised himself so that I would remember to come to his spirit, to his energy, and not to his face. It's not about his face or about a person, but about an energy. And that I ought to remember that, and I ought to remember his name. I'm like, okay. And so he said, "Let's try it again." And then bam, I was back in my bed, back in my body, back with this whooshing, zinging, tingling feeling being summoned back out of my body. And the same ringing and tingling and whooshing sensation that I'd been experiencing this whole night. And I remember at that moment I greeted that energy by saying, "Hello, Taya." And for the first time it seemed like I'd learned my lesson, because instantly, instead of even traveling out the window or traveling into the street, I was like immediately transported to this place. It was like a train station, like a train station at night where almost no one was there. There was a lot of tile, and the first person I saw, I knew it was Taya. So I went up to him and he congratulated me on finding him. And it was like, that was the end of the test. And from then on it was as if he allowed me to just go back into typical dream state. And it was a bit blurry, but there were all these dreams teaching me all these lessons. And other than, out-of-body experiences, but it was apparent that Taya was there teaching me somehow. And the lessons are a little hard to remember because I think I'd gotten so exhausted about, going in and out of my body, like, 10 times per night. But many of the lessons were about, behind any of my fears is a misunderstanding, and behind any violence or acts against something is still a misunderstanding. So I've been trying to not kill spiders for quite a while now, but sometimes it seems inevitable for some reason. But one of the dreams was that there was this spider, and I was trying to kill him because he was kind of coming at me. But every time I tried to smash him, he got up and kept walking. And then my body got a bit paralyzed by fear, and I was just unable to physically move, and the spider was just crawling on me, and I had to be faced with, there's nothing I can do, this thing that freaks me out and I don't understand is on me. And it was it was still scary, but it was as if I was forced to allow this thing to be in my presence and on my body. And it was this lesson that intolerance and misunderstanding is, in its essence, harmful. And it's obviously wrong to harm something or somebody in any way just because I don't like it or because I don't understand it. And that somehow this karmic energy, I use this term loosely because it's not like as if you do good things and good things will happen, but it's where you point your mental energy, where you point your spirit energy. This karmic energy will just manifest so that the things I don't like could keep reappearing and regenerating just because I have the focus on not liking it or having a preference against it. So, and I know this lesson, but I feel like I needed to relearn it for some reason in this moment. If I point my spirit energy or my mental energy or my emotional energy towards understanding and love and trying to dissect and bring about understanding and wisdom about certain things, then more of that will occur. So it's not necessarily looking at good or bad, but it's looking at the pattern of how you're regarding certain energies, and if there's a fundamental misunderstanding that you have with that other energy, or if you really seek to understand what that energy is about. And you may not even feel completely comfortable with that other energy, but as long as you acknowledge that it's there and it's allowed to be there, then it frees you up into much more of a relaxed, sort of peaceful state. That's something I've learned. That's something I've learned through dreams, and I guess you could call it meditation, but really mostly dreams and just investigating my reality. But yeah, so, and I think that's been really poignant to learn this lesson, because there's so much crazy stuff going on in the world right now. You know, we have an intolerant, crazy person running for president. We have someone who's also accused of being a criminal as a president, running for president. We have people, you know, shooting each other, killing each other all around the world, in our own nation. We have these conflicts rising up between us, and I know in my heart that it's all based on this misunderstanding. And I've been feeling the weight of the world so much, and that these conflicts between people have been just tearing me apart inside. But what I realized that the only thing that I can do to just make there be a little more peace within myself is basically allowing that energy to exist. And it's hard for me to understand that energy, but it's there, and that if I can put my feelers out and try and understand where everyone's coming from. It sounds weird, but it almost dissolves the conflict. But not everybody, and some of the people who are causing the conflict, of course, are people who are unwilling to put their feelers out and investigate what other people are feeling and thinking. So it's just, geez, it seems like we're in a time of like we need to have a cosmic wake-up call. So anyway, I had all these lessons and these dreams, and when I woke up in the morning, I just felt like I'd been run over by a truck. I just couldn't move. I was fatigued. My whole body was just aching. I just felt spiritually and emotionally exhausted. And I just remembered this name, Tea, and It is a name, a Greek name meaning goddess or godlike. And it was so moving to me that I never believed in spiritual guides. I'm always one of these people that you never believe it till you see it, and this was so real to me. Is that it's now, okay, I've accepted it. I have this spirit guide, and this same spirit guide is some kind of, I don't know, angelic, shape-shifting, divine energy that sometimes manifests as multiple entities, sometimes manifests as one entity, sometimes looks like a young Spanish man, sometimes looks like a middle-aged guy who looks a bit like my father, sometimes has looked, now that I think back to previous sort of astral experiences that I've had a tiny, almost elf-like jockey of a rainbow zebra who was giving me a lot of wisdom. I've had a little girl. I've had a host of these angelic beings, and this Tea manifests into all these different forms and gives me energies and lessons in my astral experiences, and probably in my dreams too. But it tends to really be more of these astral experiences where I'm summoned out of my body and I go off to some other realm, and that's amazing to me. And so I've gotten really more open in the last few days to the fact that whatever this entity, this energy is trying to teach me something. And when he, she, it wants me to come out of my body, he, she is not trying to harm me. He's doing it for my own good, and that I just have to trust that there's something really important that I can learn from this experience. So, I mean, I had this really short little meditation that morning after it happened, and I just broke down because I felt like suddenly there was so much wisdom and knowledge that was imparted to me over this night. And I just realized I need to start making some changes in my life. I need to get back to doing this meditation. I need to get back to my more spiritual, divine side. Like I've been, I'm a real reveler myself. I love wine. I love going out. I love to dance. I love to go to these rock shows. I love to, experience the crazier side of my brand of spirituality. But at a certain point you have to level these things out. So I now feel like I'm in this crazy place where my self, my physical waking world self, was revealed to me through these travels. I'm just so thankful. It really brought me to this incredibly unique place that I haven't really felt this clarity about my vision, about what I want to do with my life, as well as this fearlessness. I haven't felt this for several years since I had this kind of, I guess you'd call, enlightenment zing experience when I was just sitting around having brunch with my husband. So if you're one of the kinds of people who doesn't want to believe it until they see it, then avail yourself to the possibility that you might not know anything, and that maybe anything is possible, and some crazy things just might happen to you. I'm looking forward to now, I guess, having more experiences with Tea, my spirit guide, learning more thing,s going to crazier places. Luckily I had a really knockout dead sleep last night where I still had a lot of great dreams, but I literally couldn't move yesterday from getting out of my body so many times. So it's a real trip. It's really exhausting, but it's in the end really spiritually rewarding. So if you have these zingy feelings, if some of you out there are having these, you're laying in bed, you're being sucked out of your body, Don't be afraid. The people or the energies that are likely trying to summon you out of your body are generally just really good energies. I don't know what they are exactly or where they come from, but they want to help you, and all you can do is let go as much as you can and trust as much as you can, even though it may seem really, really, really scary and really unusual. The more you can trust that energy, the more you will learn and the more interesting experiences you'll have. That being said, when you're out there on the astral plane, which I'm using this term just because I haven't heard any other really good terms, like some other spiritual dimension is maybe what it is. I'm still not completely sure exactly what it is, but if you're out there and you're interacting with these other kind of spirit beings that exist on some other plane or dimension, you'll notice, yes, like I said, some of them are very friendly and some of them are a little bit weird and a little bit disturbed. And if you find that someone out there, some energy is bothering you, there's really no way that it can harm you. It's just, I think it's kind of one of these spiritual tests, or markers of your spiritual intelligence, that if you can then say without fear to that entity, you're making me uncomfortable and I don't want you to be around me anymore, then usually they just go away. It might take a couple of times, but if you say it calmly and respectfully to them, they'll usually back down. And nothing really that bad has happened to me. I had like a weird, like, face-painted creepy clown person come up to me in my experience the other night, and I just went, you're making me a little uncomfortable. And they went, alright, and they went away. So I've had this a few times, but anyway, the general reason that I wanted to share this with you is that it's really crazy. There's complete other amazing dimensions going on. I don't know half of it yet, but it's something that is really exciting and virtually unexplainable by any scientific means. But if we can explore this and if we can tell each other about the existence of this kind of thing, I think it'll really open up a lot of doors in just like the general level of consciousness of all of the human beings and all the other beings on this planet, that there's something else really kind of magical and unexplainable going on, and we're more than just our human bodies, and we're fundamentally connected to everything around us. That even now, physically, in a physical human body, I'm not separate from the air around me, or the ring on my finger, or the fabric of the sofa, or the thoughts and the thought energies and the feeling energies that just sort of vibrate around us from the people who are around us. Like, you know, whether it be in a crowd of people, or a person you're speaking to, or the city that you're in, or, you know, everything and everyone has this unspoken exchange going on, and it's so beautiful, and we're fundamentally connected to everything and everybody. And I should make a video about my original kind of enlightenment experience so that you can know more about it, but one of the coolest ways to explore that is dreams. And I guess I've only really done psychedelics once, and that was just a few months ago. But it's another avenue of exploring, you know, how all of this stuff works, basically. But fundamentally, what I find is most interesting is getting in touch with the magic of your own physical reality now, and the magic of the dream realms, and how not separate those are from each other. And that can really, like, I feel that kind of yoga and that kind of practice is so valuable, because the exploration there is a lot more subtle, I think, than like the psychedelic drug experience, although there's lots of really crazy, amazing stuff that happens with that as well. But if you can come to it through regular everyday exploration, that's really, really valuable and really beautiful, and I just would encourage anybody to just trip on reality and realize that your hand is not separate from the surface you're sitting on. I hope this has been a beautiful video. Thank you for watching. It's probably kind of long, but I figured I at some point should make a weird long video about some of my experiences and yeah, see where that takes us on internet land. Okay, have a fabulous day. Goodbye, internet world.